Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
Hopefully it's more than you and I here.
Yeah, I just got home. We should have been home like about a half hour ago, but our darn golf league got delayed getting off, so craziness.
I must say you are a dedicated golfer to go out in this heat and humidity.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was getting a little cooler by the time we got off, but yeah. There's John C.
Yeah.
Hello, Mike.
How you doing?
Well, I will see whether I don't want to jinx it, but I made an agreement with a dealer to buy my Porsche today.
Oh, nice.
So I was out taking the license plates off it and sending all the stuff to him to put together the paperwork and everything. So
What's your Porsche stick?
it's 2006,
What is it?
a Boxer.
Box, okay.
Yeah, and I bought it new. It's only got 34,000 miles on it. And the problem is that I took it off the road last fall in November and haven't put it back on. And the year before, I only drove it 300 miles. And the year before that was like 600 or 700 miles. So it's I'm likely to be getting fusion surgery next month on my back. So I can't see myself being able to drive it for a while. So it didn't make sense just having it parked in the garage under a car cover.
A few years ago for Christmas, I bought Mary a 2004 Audi TT convertible, and she loves it. They're not too far off.
Well, as far as a practical car, the Boxster was pretty practical. I used to drive it into Hartford every day when I was still working at HSB, and I had my own in the parking garage assigned parking space, so that I knew the people on either side of me, so I wasn't worried about someone putting a dent in it. So it got more miles back then, but without a place to go, especially with COVID going on, it's just sitting there all the time. So I think I'm probably going to end up getting something a little more practical, for an extra car. Looking at the Subaru Outback. Gloria's got the Forester Turbo, and that thing is a pretty potent little car. And there's a similar turbo for the Outback. So
That's what we have. Their second one.
if you got the turbo,
Yeah.
They have some giddy up.
Yep. Great on gas mileage. Like 36 miles to the gallon without trying.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing, Bob?
How are you guys doing?
We're hanging in there.
That's good.
I had a note from Margaret saying that she had meetings with her day job. She was going to try to make it. Didn't hear anything from John Redenmeyer. By and large, Gary Lawrence, Ray Fenn, and Terry Wakeman won't do Zoom. So we'll have to see whether we can get a quorum together tonight. Oh, there's Christina.
Hello.
Hey, Christina.
Oh, good. You can hear me. So Dick, I guess you're showing up here as R Swill.
Yeah, usually if I log on to Zoom first, it puts my picture up there.
Yeah.
For some reason, it didn't put my picture up, and I don't have a camera. I've got a camera on my laptop, but my laptop is essentially 80% non-functional, and I don't have a camera, for my desktop. Oh, here's Margaret. We do have a quorum. It's 5 to do a quorum.
Hey, Margaret.
Hi, all.
Good evening.
Hi, Margaret.
So with Margaret on board and the other 4 of us, that makes 5, which is a quorum. Am I counting it correctly, Mike?
Yes, sir.
That's good. Do we want to wait a few moments, or do you want to get started with things?
Well, where did Margaret go?
I don't know. There's a red couch there instead of Margaret.
There you go.
Here she's back. Mute yourself, Margaret.
Sorry, I could hear you. I knew what was going on. I just was out of view. So
What are you sitting on? Is that a couch?
it's
Unmute.
a settle, one of those that looks like that.
Uh,
Ah, okay.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:35. We don't have any alternates to seat, so there's none there. The last time we had honest to goodness minutes to approve was back in May. I didn't send out a copy of those minutes, but did anyone look back at them, or any issues with them at all?
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
who was the second? Bob?
Michael,
We haven't spent much money in the new year, and I didn't get a budget expenditure from Cheryl, but I think we had spent everything we had left last year to prepay for Christina, and we'll talk about all the stuff that Christina's been doing. But we'll do that later, but we're grateful for all that activity. The only expenditure I think we've had this year is I've done a boost of several of the business posts that we've put on the website. And so there's probably 25 or 50 bucks that's gone out there. Other than that, we have not had any other expenditures, and we should be thinking about things we want to do. And Bob, I'm glad you're on this time so we can talk about the CT visit and the things that Christina's done there so far and what else we want to do. But that's come a little bit later in things. So any other comments on expenditures and budget?
No.
Okay, so we'll take motion to approve from somebody? I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Do we have any announcements? I think the one thing we do have, Mike, is I sent a copy out to everyone. The NECOG just finally responded to having a regional EDC meeting. Did everyone see the thing I sent out?
Yes.
Yep.
But I just as a, that is an effort to do the CEDIS report. A couple of years ago, Ray Fenn and I did attend that, and there was only 2 other towns there at the time, and that's I think it's a 5-year report that they do. It's one of the check marks that NECOG has to do to satisfy the state's master plan. So I think it's certainly a good effort to get people engaged, and hopefully it comes with it. But it's really a process to go through this thick report to check off all these different things that go over the criteria that the 6 points that the state has under their plan of conservation development for the growth centers and all that jazz, and goes over the kind of regional objectives. A lot of them are cookie cutter, but if it'd be good for somebody to probably participate in that.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I don't know how many times you tried to prod along Phil Check and Company and didn't get any response. And finally, I guess something lit a fire into someone. So the young lady's name, I can't place it right off the back.
Howing Flexer.
Yeah, she seems to be pretty responsive. She's the one that had put together the regional POCD and sent it out to everybody. We had a young fellow that has since left the organization that was also pretty good, but she seems to be kind of stepping into the shoes that he left. So you were copied on that, I think is the only one on the EDC. I'm not quite sure why my name wasn't included as a contact on that, since it is about the EDC.
Yeah, I think they don't really have a good database at times. It's gonna pick and choose, I think.
And I think if Sean was participating in that, I don't think there's any love lost there, but that's neither here nor there. So do you plan to sit in on the first meeting?
I don't. I think somebody else would like to experience the process. It's hard to. I'm not quite sure whether this will be go beyond the CEDIS requirement, but if it does, it'll be a good thing. So it's a lot of pro forma type of stuff. If you go back, you go out, I think everybody should take a look at their website, and you can see the last report that was done. It goes over population projections for all the towns and number of people employed, different sectors. It talks about a lot of different things. So they basically kind of do the next 5 years out, I think is what they're trying to do. So I don't know if anybody else would like to attend the Zoom on the September
16th, I think, wasn't it?
Right.
What time?
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's tough.
No.
Why do they do it in the middle of the day with people working?
Because they work during the middle of the day most of the time.
But don't they understand most volunteers have jobs, and it doesn't line necessarily with the schedules we have to meet too?
The last time they did it at 7 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So anyone want to volunteer to? I think I'm available. This is on the 12th, right?
16.
Yeah, I thought it was the 16th, but I looked at it quickly.
Yes, I think it's the 16th.
And that's a Thursday?
Yeah,
That would be tough. 1 o'clock's tough.
I'm presently available. I'm trying to get lined up for getting surgery. So the whole next month is going to be somewhat fluid, is when I can get in.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to commit at this point until I have a little better sense of my schedule. I mean, I could potentially jump in for an hour, in the middle of the day like that. But I think I'll just have to sort of see what's on my plate come the middle of September, at my work.
Okay,
Problem,
well-
I mean, 1 to 4 o'clock, I'm tied up in my big aerospace contract in Bristol every Thursday. So it's really hard.
Okay, I will pencil that in unless I'm physically being operated on or something. So. And Bob, you haven't been involved in much of this in the past, so it's pretty much would be either Mike or I. So,
Yeah, and the only reason I'm not jumping in immediately is we're closing on a property in Maine in September. So I don't know if I'm going to be up there and available during the day. Got some work to do on it.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just a summer place, but something my wife always wanted. So
yeah, Bob, we're in Maine.
it's in the town of Dexter. Have you heard of Dexter Shoes?
Yes,
So it's kind of right in the middle of Maine. Beautiful little town.
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, Maine, which is next peninsula down from Bar Harbor.
Oh, great. Beautiful.
we've been looking at homes up in the Bath area.
Nice.
When you go to Maine, you have to pronounce it right. It's called Bath.
Bath. I think we're gonna try to get out of Connecticut next few years. I've had enough.
Yeah, well, my advice to anyone is do it before you get to be my age, because if you do it in your 60s, you're much able to do the reload at that point in time. So, okay, moving along, we don't have any presentations. News from other commissions. We had hosted the Ag Commission at one of our previous meetings. And some of the things that Christina has been promoting have been to some of the ag activities. We did the farmer's market and we're coming up to do the horse listeners. So I think we're kind of stepping up to help promote the Ag Commission. Haven't heard much back from them on these activities. Christina, have you?
Well, I've been in communication with horse listeners, which they seemed quite interested in getting more involved in stuff going on in town. But I can't say that I've heard from any other farm. Oh, and then the Loretta, who's the coordinator for the Ashford Farmers Market, I've communicated with her as well.
Yeah, I find it interesting that and Mike, maybe you know the background on this, but I would think the Ag Commission would be the ones coordinating and promoting the farmers market instead of the Conservation Commission. Is there a history and background on that?
I just think at the time, the Conservation Commission was a little more active and organized, and Loretta stepped up and kind of pushed that through. I mean, they had the support of the Ag Commission, but I think at the time the Ag Commission really wasn't formed. So That's kind of my recollection.
The other interesting thing is when I looked at the list of participants in the farmer's market, there wasn't anyone from Ashford on that list. It was all places from out of town, which kind of interesting, just as an aside. But at any rate, we said that we'd try to step up and do some things to promote them and put some of their activities on the our Town Our Future page. So we've done that, and also on the website. The next item that's shown there is this discussion of the regulations of the campground. And basically, Brian Spagowski, am I pronouncing his last name right? But the owner of Brierley had approached planning and zoning with a request to basically dial back the regulations that were once in place concerning the campgrounds in town from what is currently in place, because there was a strong disagreement within, not disagreement, a feeling within planning and zoning back when the current land use regulations were revised 6 or 7 years ago when Richard Hyde was the chairman of planning and zoning. And they didn't want any expansion of the campgrounds, nor did they want any new campgrounds in town. So Brian came to planning and zoning with a proposal that they would basically put in place the language that was taken out back in again, not permitting new campgrounds, but permitting reasonable expansion via special permits of existing campground facilities. This was put forth by, I'm losing track of names of people, but the attorney who used to be a land use attorney, not the current one, but she pulled up all the things that literally was just a repeat of what was taken out. And the Planning and Zoning Commission went over it. We had a special meeting and pretty much approved everything, and it's back in. So Brierley is able to expand, renovate, and improve their existing facilities as long as they get a special permit. There was a lot of discussion from the public concerning noise, and the town of Ashford cannot regulate noise specifically. It's done on a state level. I think we went through this when we were looking at the wind turbines years back. But they've agreed to try to dial back on some of the noise from their bands and stuff. So there was still some residents that would like to see them go away, but the overall consensus within the Planning and Zoning Commission was to approve the changes, so they're put in place now. Any questions?
Dick, does he intend to buy more property adjacent and therefore expand, or just have more density of campsites on his own property?
I think he owns close to 200 acres. So he's got plenty of land already. Didn't it indicate a desire to buy more land? The real issue was initially there was a ADA requirement for the main meeting house. He did not meet the ADA access for the restrooms and shower facilities. So they had put forth a request for a special permit to modify that meeting room. And then this second one was they wanted to be able to expand the meeting room. There wasn't talk about additional campsites. It was more expanding the existing facilities, and to put in Brian's words, he wanted to make sure that the activity would be an ongoing activity that would be financially viable if you're going to pass it on to his kids. So that was the general gist. There was nothing really, anything that he would do would require a special permit. So a special permit would, go to a public hearing, would jump through all the hoops to approve it. It wouldn't allow him to automatically do anything. It just
Right.
would allow a specially permitted increase or modifications of the facilities. Now, you're not too far from there, Bob, are you? You're in Shady, right?
Right. Yeah, not too far, but I mean, far enough away, I don't hear any noise from the campground.
Yeah, I think most of the noise complaints are coming from the people on Westford Hill Road. The people that are in the same vicinity as our unauthorized gravel pit. So
Yep.
I haven't heard of anyone complaining on the Perry Hill side of the property. The other major thing that came in front of planning and zoning was the application to rebuild a hole in the wall gang property. And we had a pretty detailed plan and elevations, blueprints, everything, left and right. It was pretty much in line with what they were doing, and we went to a special permit public hearing and approved the plan to go forward on that. Lastly, I haven't done anything with looking at the land use regulations for exit 72. I've had a few other things on my plate, and I'm going to try to get to that in the future. The other thing that is probably set to be approved at the next meeting is there's been several iterations on a special land use regulations for the lake districts, and that's probably due to be approved at the next meeting. The regulations basically are focused on minimizing the amount of impervious surfaces. And if you look at what has been done in around, I looked at Lake Chaffee the most because it's the most densely packed. And previously the building officials were approving outbuildings, driveways, what have you, without going to any special permitting. And that's now going to go for special permitting and limit the impervious area on the lots to 10% unless there's a exception given. Again, the idea is to eliminate the potential for runoff that would go into the lake that would decrease the water quality in the lake. The other thing that is in there is basically not permitting someone to physically expand the footprint of an existing building on a lot. And they could go up, but they could only go up as high as 45 feet. There's several people that have wanted to put in, buildings that are right on the water's edge, and they block the view of the water from the people, 2 or 3 levels behind them. So there was a lot of concern by the residents to not allow that to happen. So that pretty much summarizes what's happened with planning and zoning right now.
I have a question.
Yeah,
And I guess this may be under this world of reports on other boards and commissions. Do we have a sense of how Ashford is investing its ARPA money? The American Rescue Plan Act funds that are coming to Ashford is who's involved in those conversations?
that's being done at the Board of Selectmen level. And if you go on to the minutes of the last 2 Board of Selectmen meetings, a lot of the focus has been on upgrades to the HVAC systems within, I don't think the town hall needs it or the firehouse needs it or the senior housing needs it, but they're talking about it for the school and for Knowlton Hall.
That's what we're talking about it for the senior center too.
Senior center too, I'm surprised they would need that because it's not that old, but
I know, but it's not a very good system in there.
okay. But most of what they're proposing is dealing with HVAC is to my knowledge. I've not sat in on any of their meetings. Mike, have you had any more visibility?
Yeah, the other thing I know they're gonna invest some of the money in is the communication system, the emergency communication system. They're evaluating that, so that's where some of the funds will go to as well.
Thank you. I'll take a look at those, at some of their minutes and see, what they're up to.
And I think the Board of Ed might have mentioned too, some roof work that's needed at the school too, so that might be ARP money.
I don't recall how much money was there, but there was a fair amount.
Yeah, I was just curious whether any kind of relief or grant funding, for businesses who may have suffered during the pandemic, right? Because that's one of the qualified areas that you can provide assistance to businesses to kind of make them whole again. And then social services, was another area to support, human services.
I don't think either of those are on the Board of Selectmen's radar, and Board of Selectmen didn't reach out to the EDC for any input. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure who they've reached out to for any input. And they've been pretty much driven internally. Okay, moving on. And as last I heard, there was pretty much Cheryl was talking about going forward with this Everbridge activity. So it sounds like there is a positive sense on doing that. I think Gwen Harlan communicated recently with Catherine Silversmith on that, and Catherine responded back that it was something that they wanted to do. And I guess Willington is using it quite a bit right now. Okay. We haven't got anyone here to give an update on the ABA. The only thing, Christina, maybe you could let us know. Last I heard, the idea of trying to find a place to have the car cruises had pretty much fallen through.
Yes, the car cruise saga continues. So we did hear from the town that we could do a car cruise at Pompey Hollow Park, which is the park that's by the senior center and the senior housing with the band shell. And apparently there was a car cruise held there years ago. And so we could, in theory, do that in August, but then Terry from Terry's Transmissions just felt that, one, he wasn't really comfortable with that location, and two, he just felt that he didn't have the time that he needed to really pull it all together. So as of right now, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So as of right now, we're looking at next year. And they're still looking for locations.
And as an aside, the amount of space in the Pompey Hollow Park for a car cruise is significantly less than what was available at the Midway. It'd probably make more sense if you can get people to go all the way, in behind Ashford Park. The facility down there has got a lot more room than the one that's in the center of Warrenville.
What about
Yeah,
what about
I think-
Ashford School?
Terry will give you a list of reasons why none of these locations will work. So he's sort of very particular, and I would leave really, he's the one who needs to talk about it more so than I can.
Just an aside too, I saw on Facebook that Briar Lee is going to be having a car show coming up, and on the Facebook, they had a form that you could fill out to show your car there. I didn't get the date of when that's going to occur, but just something to put in the back of our heads there, that he's going to be hosting a car show there.
Yeah, and some of the comments, and I didn't jump in on it, Christina. You kind of put your 2 cents worth. My sense was the decision to not have the shows at the Midway was pretty much driven by the owners of the Midway, not by the ABA. For whatever reason, they didn't really want to continue to do it. It's too bad, because it was probably the biggest moneymaker for them when George and Peter were still the owners of the Midway. But that was their decision, and I guess the ABA's decided not to have their meetings at the Midway any longer too.
Well, I think right now, as far as the meetings are concerned, we just want to keep them outside. And so we've been having them the last few months at John and Carrie Baylow's of Mansfield Tree Service, because they have a beautiful barn with an overhang porch. And so we can sit outside, and even if it's raining, it's totally comfortable. Whereas I don't know that Midway even has that kind of outdoor space. I know I guess they were talking about doing some sort of patio, but that hasn't happened there. But I think right now we just are looking for outdoor spaces to meet, and then who knows what's going to happen when it gets cold.
Yep. The Midway applied for and got a permit to build a patio on the end of the east side of the building where the bar is, a patio deck there. Haven't seen anything that would indicate any construction taking place.
I think now that you're mentioning it, I think the issue there was they got the approval, but then they went and all the prices rose, of course, right? Because all lumber prices are crazy and everything. Getting contractors is impossible. So I think that's what's holding them up is the increased cost and the fact that contractors are so in demand right now. So
at any rate, moving on. 6A, promoting economic development in Ashford, there's not much that's happened there, but let's talk a bit about the activity with the CT visit.
okay. So as of right now, the Ashford page on ctvisit.com has been updated. And since our last meeting, I reached out to several businesses to encourage them to do listings. And I just did that within the last week or so. So I haven't heard back from anybody yet, but I don't think that that's necessarily means it's not going to happen. So what I did is sent emails to these businesses and laid out I'm working on behalf of the Economic Development Commission, and they're trying to encourage local businesses to list on ctvisit.com. It's a great way to get exposure for your business. Here is a link with more information, and here's an example of a local business that has a nice profile. And so I just tried to, introduce the idea to people, and then hopefully they'll, move forward with it. I also reached out to the Ashford Farmers Market to encourage them to get their events listed, and the Nipmuc Trail Marathon, which is an event, it's either in September or October in Ashford. And I also sent a list of retail businesses that we went over at the last meeting to the coordinator for ctvisit.com at the state. Her name is Jean Hebert. So she has to add those businesses to the page. So moving right along with that, I think.
Hey, Christina, I think and this is a compliment to Margaret, I think the Westford Hill Distillery page on the CT Visit is probably as good an example of how you could do it, because they've got quite a few pictures and a good overall narrative of the business.
I did use that as the example for several of them.
Thank you. I hate that picture of that green drink. I got to get that green drink off of there. But there's a couple of other events that are coming up. I'm glad you mentioned the Natchog, or the Nipmuc Trail Run. I'm thinking about the arts, Ashford Arts Council is hosting an art and poetry event. I think it's at Pompey Hollow Park in September. So again, if we're looking to add events, that's an arts focused event. That would be really wonderful. And then I'm thinking about their holiday, that they do at Town Hall, their holiday store event also that the Ashford Arts Council organizes. So those are two examples of events. And then I haven't been on the site, so maybe you did this. We're also part of the Last Green Valley, Tastes of the Last Green Valley, hosting at the distillery one of the tastes evenings. So that's another, Ashford event. Just I'm tossing it out there for what it's worth. So
yeah, I just made a note to reach out to the Ashford Arts Council. I know I have a contact with that group, so I can let them know. I did check because the Last Green Valley came up at the last meeting, and the Last Green Valley does have their own page on ctvisit.com. So they have the ability already to add events, which I hope they're doing. I would think it's probably like a staffing issue if they don't, since I'm sure that they don't have a huge staff, but they do have a presence on that site.
Yeah, and Christina, you've got the list of things that Bob had put together for the Wyndham Chamber of Commerce. I think that was
Yes. Yeah. I pulled from that when I was making out my list of companies or businesses to reach out to and the events. There are a couple of things that aren't happening. It looks like the Ashford Gravel Grinder, which is a bike race, is not happening this year. It didn't happen last year either. But the Nipmuc Trail Marathon, I think, came from Bob's list, and that is happening this year. So I did reach out to them.
Yeah, and Christina, if you could kind of loop together with Bob on the logistics on that activity, would appreciate that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and I haven't heard much. I don't know if you have, Margie, from the Wyndham Chamber. I think the last Zoom meeting got canceled, but I haven't heard much from them on kind of that promotion thing with the interns they had. I don't know if you guys, anybody's heard about that.
I think that they, you're right, they kind of didn't show up for the last couple of meetings and bothered to cancel the Zoom meeting. But my understanding is that they did go ahead and produce 3 of those videos. But they kind of pushed them all out in like one Facebook post, as opposed to kind of putting it out, putting one out and putting out
Okay.
another one, so I haven't, I'm trying to think where it was that I saw them, like I was able to find them, but they did a big one on Putnam. They did another one, I think, on Willimantic. And it was this idea of an excursion through the area, start here for breakfast and then go here
Right.
for activity, and they did execute it. So what they're doing with it now, I don't really know, and the itineraries. So I think that, we could kind of think about doing our own itineraries. We talked about that, that putting it together with our just things in Ashford, or, tying in a couple of local towns and, having people spin through. So I think we could still go ahead and do that. And there is another meeting scheduled. I believe it's maybe next Thursday. I saw it come up on my calendar sometime in the next week or so. So I don't know much more than that, but they did complete those movies, those little videos.
Yeah, I think I'll reach out just to see. I'd like to zip into a Zoom meeting with the Wyndham Chamber just to see. But to your point, CT Visit also does themed events in towns out here. And they do need a big lead time, but around boil season for River's Edge for maple syrup, and you tie in some lodging and maybe some outdoor trails that people could go hike. Maybe that's something we could put together. Just thinking down the road.
I think I'm looking at the video for Putnam on the Wyndham Region Chamber of Commerce Facebook page. I see the one on Putnam.
And I mean, the CT Visit site, I would imagine, gets a lot more hits than the Wyndham Chamber page. So something to think about as if we put some effort into a business and creating like a theme type seasonal thing, we might get more visits and more folks to Ashford if we have it up on CT Visit rather than just the Wyndham Chamber.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think we get more bang for the buck with the CT Visit than the Wyndham Chamber. They seem to kind of wax and wane. For a while there, they were going gangbusters. Then they pretty much collapsed on themselves for a couple of years. They used to be members of the ABA at one point in time. Then they backed out of that. So we can send stuff to them, but I think that we're put more energy on the CT Visit would pay off better.
Yeah, and I think one resource that they do provide is they have all this video equipment now. So if we, you put something together that promotes an event coming up, and if they had those interns, as everybody knows with a small business, they're stretched for time and labor, and like, what do you mean I got to submit a video? So that was the encouraging thing about the Wyndham piece, was that they had a resource for some businesses for free to tap into that. So I don't know. I'll jump on the next meeting and see where it's going.
Let me just say that I'm watching the videos that they have. You could do a video like this with an iPhone. You really don't need fancy equipment.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And somebody who does have fancy equipment could do something even better. So it's not that hard to do video nowadays. The quality on the iPhones is like so much better, than it used to be, that you can do a really nice video and edit it on your phone in a pretty efficient amount of time.
Yeah. As someone who spent close to $800 on a Sony handheld video camera and all the stuff that went with it, it's sitting in a carry bag and under my desk and hasn't been used for 2 or 3 years. So it's a technology that, just like handheld pocket cameras, has gone by. So if I take a video or a picture, I use my camera.
And I think the more expertise is in the editing. where you overlay music and you do a lot of cuts and fades. So I think that's where it comes in to look for a polished piece. And I only know this because that's my daughter's major in college is film and television production. So that's what she tells me.
Well, you're paying the tuition, so you know the value of it.
Right. Right.
Okay,
So
can we,
one thing I just want to say, I love, Christina, that you have added on our website. The businesses that you featured are now press releases, so that over time, and already you've got like 5 of them up there. It's nice to have profiles on the businesses that we've talked about. And, I just think that is good because businesses then can link to that and, get some mileage out of it. So I think that's a great idea.
yeah, and additionally, what we've been doing is Christina sends me a blurb with the link to that page, and I post that on the Our Town, Our Future Facebook page. And I don't think I've boosted everyone, but I have boosted several of them. And we've got, if I boost it for $25, I can hit like about in 1 week around 1,200 people in Ashford. So it's a way to get more visibility and spend a few bucks with Facebook to get some more exposure for the EDC. And as I think she was saying, the next one that's ready to go, and I've not gone onto the Facebook page to put it there yet, is the one for the hostel listeners.
Right. Yep.
And do you have them written pretty much through the end of the year at this point?
Yeah, they're all done through December. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think,
Yep.
and yeah, I think Westford Hill, you guys are September, October. Do you remember?
I do remember. It was one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, we used some of the end of the year money from last year's budget to pre-fund Christina to do some of these up.
And then we can do some of the more less seasonally sensitive and, like Cool Grind and some of the things that are a little bit more high tech right in the winter months that aren't so seasonal, just to make sure that we're showing the full, spectrum of the businesses that are here.
Right. We've got Antero and Cash's Country Store and Tool Max in those, November, December, winter months.
Okay, Christina, that sounds good. We've kind of gone along on item 6B, which is the website. I think the website is, essentially complete, other than adding these news releases. Is there anything else that you've seen on the website? This question goes to Christina and everyone else that might need to be updated or modified on the website as it's currently running?
I don't think there's anything, super critical that needs to be updated. It'll just be a matter of, when, let's see, I know there's somewhere it lists like who the members of the EDC are, as like people change, you might need to do updates. But I can't think of anything that needs to be updated,
The only thing, and I'd sent you an email that this one person kept on sending me, that our website wasn't generating the right, and I'm not using the right words, but the right indexing on Google, I guess she was saying. Is there things we can do to make sure that the website shows up more when someone does a search?
Well, yes, but what are people going to be searching to find your website? You know, I think, you know, like if you were going to say promote specific properties in town for development and you want to get those properties in front of potential developers, you might want to really look at the SEO on the site. But if you were going to do that, you would also have to take, you know, do a whole marketing campaign to really get that in front of the right people. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know that an SEO effort is really going to pay off for this type of website. I think where you want to get your traffic from is through, you know, sharing things on Facebook that drives traffic to those pages that profile local businesses. You know, if you wanted to create like an email list to keep people updated and email them with like, here's the latest business profile, and you email it out to people, that would be a way to drive traffic. You know, you know, like businesses that need to really think about SEO are like businesses that, you know, retail businesses, like I'm shopping for sneakers, you know, and those or whatever.
Yeah,
But
Christine,
I don't,
if I do a search and I look at what comes up, and I use Norton antivirus, and Norton has a green check if it's a safe place, a red star if it's unsafe. Then they have a question, which means it's untested. And when you go to the site, it says not secure. I'm not sure how you do it, but getting it so that Google and Norton and places like that would consider this to be a safe site.
so
be
all that, what that tells you is that a site has what's called an SSL certificate. And I don't know what SSL stands for off the top of my head, something license, I think. And so to get an SSL certificate, you have to go through your, typically it's through whatever your host is, and it's not expensive. It's like, I don't know, I haven't done it in a while, but I want to say it's like $100 or $200 for the year. And you just pay for this SSL certificate, and then that little warning turns into a green check for your website. And that is important for business websites that are going after Google traffic. You know, I would recommend doing that if it's not too onerous to figure out, because the issue that you have is who are you, you know, who do you have to go to get that done? I'm not even sure. Do you know?
Savage Systems.
Yeah. So you would have to go to them and you'd have to say, we want an SSL certificate, and they'll probably charge you to set that up. And then they'll charge you for the actual SSL fee.
Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile going forth and doing that. And I'd given you all the context at Savage previously. So all I know is that would like to see the green check rather than the gray check. So
Well, I have 3 hours left of what I've been, you know, allotted. So I can do that, but it's possible that could take me like an hour and a half to get that done. And then that leaves me an hour and a half to do other things.
yeah,
So
and Christina, I think we can probably find a way to use some of this year's money to extend stuff for you.
okay, if that's a possibility, then, you know, I'd be happy to do it. Savage Systems, I don't think I have a contact for them. I've dealt with
Madcom.
I haven't dealt with Savage at all.
Well, Savage is the one that's hosting it. Cheryl, I always get Margaret, Mike, is it Cheryl Edwards now? She what's
Town hall?
used to be Randino. It's Edwards now, right?
I don't know.
Baker? Are you talking about Cheryl Baker?
Cheryl Baker, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said, at town hall. Okay.
She's the one that is, what we had, the town website is hosted by Savage Systems. So what we had decided to do is simply piggyback onto that contract. So she picks up the cost of everything with Savage Systems. So I suspect that if you talk with her, you can find out who to talk to at Savage Systems.
Okay, I will reach out to her.
Going back to your original question about the notables, at one point we had talked about putting the church farm property on as a notable only because of its association with Eastern. The fact that that is an ECSU property is kind of a notable thing, I think, that shows that connection that we have with a local university with that property. So I'll just put that out there. And then another approach that we might take, because I keep wanting to get back to the fact that we created this website to try to convince people that we're a good place to plant a business, right? Plant your that whole grow your business in Ashford. So I'm thinking that as you're talking to all these business owners, that maybe we can weave together sort of a, why do I do business in Ashford? So even though you've already featured horse listeners in your conversation with the owner of horse listeners, to kind of pitch that question or see if you can glean out of your little interaction with him, what is it about doing business in Ashford that works for him, and having to do with location or having to do with, affordability. And I keep going back to the time that Ed Rosenberg many years ago and I went to visit Tom, who has the antique shop right in, down in Warrenville. And the fact that he literally said, I lived here and I did a lot of business here with antiques. And I did a lot of business here in the Farmington area. And I went halfway in between and I said, okay, this is a good place for me to buy a house. And he bought his business, put his antiques business in Ashford. So, I just think maybe that's just something new that we could add into the website over time. Kind of, it's like a mini testimonial, but it's literally like a line or two. And especially as we get into some of the high, the cool grinds and some of these other businesses that are a little more, manufacturing oriented and all, we'll get different perspectives, and that maybe that's a way to kind of put a business spin on it, from a business person's perspective. So just a thought.
Yeah, and Christina, I would also add, Brian Savulis's business across from the post office. He was,
Say that again. What business?
I'm having a lapse of it's a manufacturing business. It's directly opposite of the post office. And
Is that Yeagle?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeagle. Yeah. And Brian Savulis was the first president of a reconstituted ABA back some years past. So he would be a good one to put on your list.
Okay.
I just looked at the town hall website, and the town hall website, which is also managed by Savage Systems, on Norton has a green check mark.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
So whatever they did to get that one on there, if we do the same thing on ours, I think it would be good. Okay. Ashford, Our Town, Our Future. Mike, are you on there?
Yes, I am. I had to plug my phone and it was dying on me, so I'm holding my phone here. Yeah, just a couple quick things. One, Our Town, Our Future is kind of looking at, we'll be looking at the plan of conservation development to see what items in there we may be able to facilitate. The other thing that's come up is that the plan of conservation development is going to be due to be re-upped here soon. So that may be something that we work with the Planning and Zoning Commission on, and the Board of Selectmen on. Not to do it ourselves, kind of like we did the last time, but maybe to facilitate meetings or input or what have you. The other thing that we were working on, that was kind of our big ticket item that we've kind of went to the Board of Selectmen on, was the Route 4474 corridor. I did reach out to the DOT. They did respond on both the issue of the Route 7444 corridor and the school safety zone on 89. That's been a big topic here this summer. And I guess the good news is that they've identified some pathways for the town to get some things done on the Route 89 school zone. And actually the first select woman did call me yesterday afternoon to let me know that she's got a meeting or is trying to get a meeting together with DOT. I guess they're trying to get it done either sometime this week, either Thursday, Friday, or next week, to discuss that issue along with the Route 4474 corridor. So, and the engineer from DOT was still working on some other evaluations of that corridor in light of recent accident history and that type of thing. So there's some progress being made. I hope that by the next meeting, there'll be some positive progress made on both those fronts. But that's kind of where we are right now. There's a little bit more communication ongoing now with DOT on both those issues.
There's been quite a few posts on the Ashford Community Connection Facebook page concerning the accidents in front of Cumberland Farms. And I didn't put a lot of detail in there, but a number of people thought it was the purvey of the town to engineer the entrances and exits for the Cumberland Farms. And what Cumberland Farms had proposed and Planning and Zoning had agreed with was not implemented. DOT decided to change things on their own. And what's there now is the DOT plan. And frankly, it really leaves that upper entrance as a blind spot with people coming down the hill. So that was pointed out as an issue in the RSA. And frankly, I think would be one of the biggest things that we could try to get moving forward.
I believe it is, Dick. I think Catherine did kind of mention that the DOT was more aware of that situation right now and realized that they were the ones that approved it. So I think that will be one of the focuses of the initial conversation on that corridor with DOT.
Yeah, and I think if you look at that, it's even worse than it has to be. There's all sorts of brush and grass and even a sign that's right on the east side of that entrance, which blocks the visibility. And there's also a doubled up telephone pole there. So if you were to simply clear the area and visibility to that entrance by removing all that stuff, you would make a big impact on the safety of that entrance.
Correct. That's all I have to report on at this time. If anybody has any questions.
I love the fact there's going to be a conversation. I mean, that's such a, what a great place to start, right? Is having a conversation about our vision for our own downtown, our own center of town, and trying to calm traffic and turn it into a place that, people slow down a little bit to be able to do business here. I mean, I'm happy to hear that.
I was going back and forth to stores quite a bit for physical therapy, and just driving through Warrenville to the exit 44, 74, the number of times that people pull out in front of you, if you're going straight on 44 from the entrance from 74, it's like 50% of the time. If you didn't slow down, put your brakes on, you'd be in an accident from people pulling out at that intersection. So, I mean, we've got more than our share of unsafe areas around that stretch. Okay, moving along, we've kind of covered somewhat of 6D, which is our enterprise zone and what we're doing there. I think that's kind of morphed into partially what we were doing at EDC and partially what our town, our future's doing. Is there anything that we want to add to that?
No more word on our restaurant prospect, I suppose, for the enterprise zone.
Yeah, Mike was dealing with that. Anything new?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
On the restaurant. that
Oh,
Property.
you know, I haven't reached out to him in the last month. I mean, he told me that there were 2 active restaurateurs, or whatever you call them, looking at the property. I mean, he took the sign down at one point. And the last time I drove by there, I didn't see that it was back up. So I don't know if there's something now in the works, but I'll try to reconnect with him again, see what's going on. She's pretty good at responding. Hey, I did want to mention one thing about the 74-44 corridor, something kind of weird that we maybe could consider. You know, a lot of towns do this to kind of identify the downtown area or an area that you're approaching in town is by putting up banners off the telephone poles. It's not really a thing that the companies, the Eversource or Frontier like to have done, but they allow it. And a lot of time, I don't know if there was something we could do along those lines at some point to kind of at least begin to, you know, besides hanging American flags, maybe the other towns have looked at different types of banners that might identify the town more for its history or whatever. So, I mean, that's just something to throw out there. A little thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea, something to look at. Yeah.
That's it for me.
Okay. I'm taking time to write my notes down here, what's going on. We had the Wagon Shed property. To my knowledge, there's no new news on that. It sits back with the Board of Selectmen and to what they're doing. And I sent Catherine everything I had in terms of what Bill Darcy had done on that in the past. Haven't heard anything back from anyone on that. Mike, have you heard anything else about the Wagon Shed?
Negative. I think they're still waiting to do the restoration, make sure the grant's in place. So I mean, I think unfortunately it's going to continue to kind of go at a turtle's pace.
Yeah, I had offered to have the EDC participate in that, whatever phase it is, phase 2 or 3 of, you know, doing the remediation, and never received much of any feedback. The real issue for us is, I think we want to be involved in the marketing of the property. And there was an attempt by the company that was doing the managing the restoration, that they wanted to do the marketing for the town. And I had expressed an interest that I'd like the EDC to take the lead in that, since we're talking about something that is an economic development for the town. So it should be managed by the EDC, not by the Board of Selectmen, and haven't received any feedback one way or the other on that.
Hey, Dick, I think we'll be involved. I think that at least I felt some positive vibes from the first selectman's office that we would have some involvement in that. So I don't think we're forgotten.
Good.
Well, and I also don't think, that we should forget that we are, however many miles it is from that location to Four Corners, and that's, the largest federally recognized opportunity zone in Connecticut is that Mansfield Four Corners area. And, I just feel like, we need to sort of talk to the powers that be and advance CT that, is working hard to market the, that corridor in the Yukon Tech Park, but to suddenly, also have this couple 100-acre parcel within such a close proximity. I think there's some opportunities to work with them. Do we still get updates from Advanced CT or whoever it comes from about companies looking for siting opportunities? Dick, does that come through to your email still once in a while?
Yeah, I send them out to the group. They keep on changing the names of what they are, but we're a member of CDAS, which is affiliated with what used to be Advanced CT. And it also gives us the ability to list commercial properties on their website. And I had reached out to Gary Lawrence to get his help on putting some of the properties that we have, which would be the old Sneakers property and that 19-acre parcel that is on the corner of 74 and 44. And I haven't got anything back from Gary because he had all of that pretty much laid out in the past, just a case of doing. And also the old building, the one that's on the corner going down into Ashford Park. So all of those are potential development sites that we could list on the CT properties website. So we should probably take advantage on doing something on that.
And I would just say too, if you prepare that, material with maps and facts about the property, why not put that on the EDC website as well? It's not going to get as much traffic necessarily, but it helps sort of round out, Ashford as a place to do business and where the opportunities are.
Yeah, we could put a tab on the website navigation panel, which would be like business opportunities.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had put a lot of effort into doing that for a couple of properties, but I still think it's, and it never materialized, but I think it would be, still it's the right thing to do, right? To try to actually market parcels that are worthy of development consideration.
Yeah.
Like the Moore property.
Yeah.
So let's not go there.
We've had a lot of fits and starts on this area. That Moore property in particular, I will never forget my standing in front of a public hearing that Mike Zambo had decided to have instead of simply, making a decision to sell it to the folks that wanted to put the Dollar General there. And everyone, castigated us for promoting Dollar General. And one of the most vocal people there was Catherine. And I got the biggest kick was several months after that when Dollar General opened, I ran into Catherine's shopping there. So Dollar General isn't exactly the Neiman Marcus shopping place, but a lot of people go down there to pick stuff up.
Hypocrites.
Okay. So I'll reach out to Gary to see if he has anything. Excuse me, I'm making my notes as I talk. We've got the buy local. We had anything printed, and I'm not sure if everyone here knows. I know Christina knows, but the folks that owned anything printed have sold the business, and there's a new owner, and they moved the location of the business into the little shopping plaza that used to have the supermarket and stuff in it, where Wellington Pizza 2 is located. And the owners are still in town, but they're in the process of retiring to an island off the coast of Guatemala. I'm trying to think of the name of the island. Christina, do you remember the name?
I don't. No.
But they're definitely, hanging it up and taking forth. So, but at any rate, they did make all the brochures up for us. Ray was going to take the lead on going business to business with the brochures and get them to put them on their counters. That really hasn't gone any further than when the last time we spoke. Maybe that's something we could go through the ABA on, since most of the businesses would be ABA businesses. We did at one point in time when we were in that commission's room, had a bunch of these plexiglass display things that you could put these brochures in and put them on the checkout counters at your business. I don't know how many of those are still left, but it'd be good to get these brochures out before the big.
When did we update them?
They were updated about a year or so ago.
Okay.
Ray kind of took,
And where are they physically, do you think?
and they're in the commission's room
Okay.
where we used to meet.
Yep.
So they're there, and there's some unknown number of these plexiglass display.
Yeah.
Things
Somewhere in there too, right? Because we did collect some of them back, I think. And that's something that we invested in. We went online and then we did an 8.5 by 11, like a little poster, and then there was a pocket for the brochures. So
Yeah,
Yeah, if we've
all
got
of-
them, I mean, that wouldn't be hard to get them out and about. You just have to go out, and it's not like we have that many places. So
and I think you had started this with me or something a long time ago, and then Ray picked it up.
Yep.
And then I did all the cut and paste graphics for him, and we got the artwork down to anything printed. So it's
great.
it's literally there. It's just sitting in one of the file cabinets.
Yep. Okay.
Let me know what you have for stands and for information. I don't mind handing some stuff out.
Okay.
And, we should see if we can get the PDF to Christina. Maybe we could put it on, again, add a page to our website that has the PDF of the brochure.
That's doable. Easy enough.
I think I have that, and anything printed said that they kept all of the graphics and everything from the previous business and passed them off to the new owners.
Good.
So if I don't have that personally, then I can probably get it from them.
Yep.
Okay. It brings us to the end of the agenda. Do we have anything new to add? I think the one thing I would add, so we were lucky to have a quorum this time, but we do have 2 alternate positions. Both of our alternates tend not to show up. We'd put Carrie Olson on, but she's got a lot of evenings taken up already, so she doesn't show up. And Mark Fontaine started to come, but hasn't come. So I'm all for trying to recruit, a couple more alternates. Christina, I would reach out to you, but I don't think we could have you as an alternate and still being a contractor with us. So I think you'd probably rather be a contractor than an alternate.
Right. At least for the time being.
Do we have any ideas of anyone else we could bring on?
I'll talk to my brother-in-law.
Yeah, because I think we need to get, 1 or 2 more people. So I'm grateful that we ended up with a quorum tonight, but with not being able to do in person, we've had 3 of our members, Ray, Terry, and Gary, that basically have dropped out. And matter of fact, Terry had even sent me an email saying, if you're going to keep on doing Zoom, I'm willing to put forth my resignation. And I told him to hold off to see if we can get the hybrid meetings taking place, because I really don't want to lose Terry.
They can call in to a Zoom meeting and not have to be on the Zoom meeting.
Right.
Do they know that?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I've talked to Ray. Mike, you've talked to Ray too. It's just, Gary has told me flat out, he says, I won't do Zoom. If you can't meet in person, I don't want to meet. So I don't know how to address that, but
So I could send an email to the ABA and just ask that, that the Ashford EDC is looking for alternates. If anybody's interested, to email you, Dick.
Yep.
And then the other thing I would just mention is I know the Ashford Board of Education this past week had a hybrid meeting. So they had people in the room and then they had participants on Zoom. So
okay.
It is happening in town, and I don't know. So I'm assuming that they're going to roll that out for the town hall as well.
Yeah, but the Board of Ed meets up at Ashford School, right?
Right. But it's just a matter of getting a camera in a room. It's not that hard. So
I had reached out to Mike D'Amato, and he said they're not ready to do it in the town hall yet.
Oh.
I mean, at some point in time, the town's going to have to kind of suck it up and say, this is the situation we're dealing with, and we got to just figure out how to do business.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny because the schools all had to do this on a dime last year, and they figured it out. And these poor teachers were told and you have to teach, 5 kids in person and 10 online. And they did it, and they did it quickly, and they did it seamlessly. So it is possible.
Yep. Okay, guys, I thank you all for showing up. And since Christina, what you might want to do is send me a statement, like the same kind of thing you did last time for X number of hours for work. And I would say, why don't we do another 10 hours or so?
Okay.
And that
I
way,
can do that.
Everyone kind of okay with that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, if I could just throw this out there too, first off, Christina, great job looking at the EDC website. It's really, really improved. And I know you're going to talk to Savage Systems. I'm just curious, can they give you some data back on how many hits are we getting, or, it just looks great now. And I'd be very curious to see, hey, has it gone from maybe 10 people looking at our site a month to 50? So I think that'd be some great data if they could give us that.
Well, what you would need is Google Analytics is the program to track website traffic. And to do that, you need a code on the site. And it's free. It's simple to do. And let's see, that's a WordPress site. I think I can set it up. If it hasn't been set up, we can definitely set that up.
That would be great. And then we could really see your hard work paying off and some
Yeah.
real hits on the site.
Well, I would expect that the traffic from Facebook will probably be quite significant. So anytime that you share something, because the thing with the website is, if you just update a website, it's kind of like a tree falling in the woods and nobody's there to hear it. But if
Right.
you share that content on Facebook, if you share it through an email newsletter, that will help drive traffic to your site, which then will in turn help, your position on Google,
Sure.
and that whole SEO piece. So, but I would think the effort that you're making on Facebook is probably helping quite a bit.
Yeah, doing the link. I administer the Republican Town Committee Facebook and website, and it was done on WordPress. And when I go in the dashboard on WordPress, I can see all the traffic that it's going on it. So we don't have a similar view on our website. It is done on WordPress, right?
The site is on WordPress, yeah. But yeah, there's that you're saying the Ashford Republican Town Committee?
Yeah, I mean, that is also done in WordPress. A young fellow who's not in the town any longer originally set it up, and I do minor updates to it, but I go on there and I can track what's going on as far as the traffic and what's blocked and all of those sorts of things. So I would assume that there would be ability to log on to something similar to that for the EDC website.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Yeah, I'll take
Dick,
a look.
Great.
One thought, maybe we should put something in the Ashford Citizen, really announcing the rebirth of the website. And maybe that's a way to drive up some traffic, at least here in Ashford. And who knows, maybe people will share it or whatever, but maybe we should get an article. I mean, next round will be for the middle of September for our October version, October's edition. So maybe that's something we should shoot for, is get just a little blurb in there.
Yeah, we used to do an EDC. And
Yeah,
Margaret,
I turned out a page every month about miscellaneous things, so
Right.
it's
yeah,
good.
Margaret, you did a pretty good job on those. Could you make a cut at that again?
Yeah, let me try that. We'll come up with a different format and, maybe do a half-page thing, but I can collaborate, maybe with pick Christina's brain and do something that we can do. So I'll try to get that in September 19th for October.
Well,
Yeah.
you have the content already of the businesses that were profiling on the website. So you could actually just repurpose that, maybe with just like a little intro, like every month we want to profile, a Ashford business, and here's the October business or whatever, and just
Yeah, and
repurpose.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is going back to our mission and the fact that we want to support existing businesses, and that's that part. But I think it's a way to recruit, that the whole concept of buying locally and how other ways that we are working to support businesses and market properties here. It's like the whole package of EDC, and then the profile of the month is part of it, and we send them to the website for that or something. So,
Mhm.
I feel like we need to keep true to what our commission mission is when we talk to our townspeople. Because businesses are part of that too, right? So, but I'll give it some thought and try to send something out for you all to take a look at.
Good. Thank you, Margaret.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Thank you, everyone, for taking your Wednesday evening and spending it with us on Zoom.
Thank you for making it special.
If you need this to be official, a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I
motion.
second that.
Okay. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
night, folks.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Be safe.
Night. Hey, guys. I'm off of it. Haley, you can sing now. I know, drags on sometimes. You can sing.
Haley, did you throw all your clothes down that need washing?
Is that what Dad just said? Oh. Sing, 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 sing. Sing, 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 sing. Sing, 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 sing.
Could dance if you want to. You can
Leave your friends behind.
If you don't dance, you ain't no friend of mine. You can dance, safe to dance.
Haley, all these boomer tunes. As Ryan would call it.
No, it's so popular music. Ben and Jerry's show.
Does anybody know how to get to Logan Airport?
Are you more comfortable in here?
Oh, it's awesome. Yes, thank you. Very more comfortable. I thought the house looked great, and I thought I looked great. So I did start parking.
Okay, this stuff going up to your room? You're bringing any of this?
Yeah, my boss took me in.
It
My boss was.
probably wash this. Any other masks I should wash?
Wash it, put them up in there.
No, but I should wash it.
Yeah.
I connect to you like emotionally, personally. I feel your heart. I feel your heart. I'm going to start with grilled shrimps with a little bit of miso. And for the
Shrimps.
steam part, we do gyoza, the mushrooms. And for the fry part of the traditional tonkatsu.
What is that?
Oh, the ice cream place?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
What is that?
Thank you so much. So
Right.
today, we're going to use fun to make some hot cigars. I'm going to grill, we're going to steam turnips with a miso mixture in the inside. I quickly realized my turnip is not a turnip.
Parsnips will come out nasty, dude.
So you're gonna wear your black sneakers tomorrow, honey?
I'm not gonna wear my glasses.
Black
Sneakers
Yeah, my hot hokas or whatever.
or Hokas. They're so
Wearing those.
comfortable.
Okay, you don't want these red and white Adidas?
Sure.
Where are these things going? Not this, is this coming with you?
Yeah, I'm bringing my backpack.
About this paper.
Yeah, I'm bringing my
This is T-Mobile, America's leading 5G network. This is Apple TV Plus. And now, only T-Mobile can still NXT customers 1 year of Apple TV Plus on Fox. There's a feel about originals like Ted Lasso, The Morning Show, so more people can watch them all in more places with 5G, our 5G network. Apple TV Plus on Fox, America's leading 5G network.
I quickly realized my turnip is not a turnip.
Parsnips are like carrots.
Stuff the parsnips. That would be a new one. They just kind of come up with that.
I want to do something earthy and something that's going to cleanse the palate between my two dishes.
So it's a bit to the
So yes, I'm gonna risk it today. Turnips versus parsnips, they're a lot alike. All I'm thinking right now is I'm gonna make this parsnips work, and so I'm gonna push it. Oh my word.
He's skeptical.
So, that's where the people comes in, this one with pepper, with some micro cilantro just right on top, because I really want this beer to speak for itself. The steam part, I thinking of making mochi and then wrap the mochi around the strawberries, more like a sweet that was making it. Well, mochi's a good idea, very Japanese. This kind of dough you can use in sweet or savory, but this is not what I'm looking for. What I do is savory mochi and then just put some shrimp in there. So, yes, I would have savory.
Give it a nice sauce that isn't overwhelming.
Fingers crossed we get it to the top six. That's right. With my international background, I know a small bit of Japanese, but I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I've never made mochi before, but I need to make sure some trust. So here we go.
What's mochi is?
A jackatory with scallions, and then the third dish is going to be a pepper dish. Scallions and chicken thighs, you're going to put them on the grill. Yes, sir. And those scallions have to be cooked. They can't be raw. That's a problem already. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to cook giant chunks of scallion and those small pieces of chicken at the same time. Well, how are you going to run the grill is the essential. I will get it done. Simplicity is going to be a big challenge. We know your history about creating so much confusion. Today you have to really limit yourself to keep the essence of Japanese simplicity and give us delicious, simple flavors. Yes, chef. Good luck. Thank you, sir.
Not very much, just experimenting in my own kitchen, but I'm not versed in these flavors. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a grilled scallop. It is marinating in a little yuzu, a little oil, a little bit of red miso, a little bit of soy. And then I'm gonna do a steamed cod with common, mirin, soy. No, I wouldn't blaze the cod. What I would do is adjust the broth that you're gonna put on top. Okay. And then fried is just a very classic fried chicken.
So, Chelsea, Thomas makes 19 years.
Yes.
It's not just for yourself.
My husband and I, we are expecting our third. Number 3. Oh my gosh. Yeah, number 3.
Boy,
I win, we go record it. Thank you. Yeah, I gotta give it a thank you.
let's go. So, when to strength again? I mean, she's cooking this position.
No, she's not. She's actually making some.
And she's doing a and then she's going to cook that. Kelsey's doing a beautiful grill to start as part of her grilling course. She's very insulted to speak. So I'll have her doing some traditional scallions and chicken thighs on a skewer, which is nice. But you know, could be a little bit simple because it's a very kind of common dish again. And yes, parsnips, and she's carved them out, and she's putting these on tons of their eyes inside her, sort of a filling slash marinade. That's steamy. I've never seen pasta texture in Japanese cuisine.
We don't use it in Japanese.
I think that she made a mistake. I think that she got parsnips with her. I see some because see something steaming mochi. It's true. Taste the steam forward. No, it already has tons of water. Why would you add it on?
I think it's based on what his personal experience with Japanese food is like. It's pulling from that vocabulary.
So you change the direction there and get a steam shrimp from the mochi and serve that as a steam course. I think he suffers from this beautiful experience.
A little bit of respect. And I'm glad he's changed direction.
Careful on it.
20 minutes to go. So fingers crossed.
Have your name in it, Kayla?
No,
Kayla, you have the best suitcase the whole damn line.
it's a graduation.
Oh, I love that. Wheels are so nice. Is that checked luggage?
No.
So like, screw it, let's talk better. Let's talk shopping. Let's talk something about like 12 hours. Set your intention.
You gotta get your name in here, honey. Bring your suitcase.
I've never been on a plane with it.
She's never been on a plane.
No.
I wonder if Lizzie's comfortable over there. You see the dog here? Look at crazy Lizzo.
Where's my baby?
Look at her.
God.
She's got this mood going on.
I see you're loving cricket, the limited player with all these awesome extras. But it's time to stop scrolling. Everything you want, including the price. This is not a needle about business officers. Is this forest restaurant? Is this even
No, it's chicken.
fresh groceries and more? Free same-day delivery, Walmart Plus.
As someone who resembles someone else, I appreciate that Liberty Mutual knows everyone's unique. That's why they customize your car insurance, so you won't pay for what you need. I mean, just because you look like someone else doesn't mean you can't afford or yell at vacuum or need sleep medication. Oh yeah. That's only
What a
pay-
trained dog that is.
Last days last by the grace of the fire and the flame. You're the face of the future, the blood in my veins. Oh, ooh, the blood in my veins. Oh,
That's cool.
Some people have joint pain, plus have high blood pressure. They may not be able to take just anything for pain. That's why doctors recommend Tylenol. It won't raise blood pressure the way that Advil, Aleve, or Motrin sometimes can. For trusted relief, trust Tylenol.
What's your phone number?
Our sisterhood is
Was Catherine Silversmith on the meeting? Why?
No, they were talking about her too.
They were?
Talking about like, I saw her in the Dollar General when she said that she's the biggest advocate against it.
What? What'd they say? Who said that? Robert, is that what they said?
I heard it when I was 2 years.
Are you charging your things like I asked you to do?
No, I'm not.
I decided to
I've never listened.
that it will come together.
What's this box? This. Is this yours?
That's exactly what I did.
Looks black and sits on a grill. Your leeks.
Remember and everything that goes into it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Michael, what are you cooking today? I'm gonna do a steak. I'm gonna do a sushi was a basically it's a agadashi, not agadashi, dashi. And then you're gonna choose to steam it. Yes, have you ever done that thing? And what makes you feel confident that you'll be able to nail that? I don't know how confident I am. Chris, if you nail this, right, kudos to you. Yes. Okay. What are you gonna fry? I'm gonna try that on tofu. Right, so yep. The tofu is gonna go into the agadashi. Yeah, that's good. And what are you gonna grill? I'm gonna grill my steak. Thanks. Look like coffee. Good luck. Appreciate it, guys.
Look at that thing roll.
So he's doing 3 different dishes, 1 vegan, that's the black cod that he's going to do. And then he's gonna do a steamed omelet and he oversees eggs.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Friday. Italian buttering.
Guys, I'm worried about Irish food. Oh boy.
And it's a hot mess. Oh yeah. She's the best of them all.
So how I feel about this dish, I ended up because that no super. So we'll see what happens. I used to check these screens. That's what will happen. I could actually go through. I think it's a knockout. Yeah, omelet. Let's see this. This will go over here.
Say the question asked me. I pray for husband and things that I'm watching. So bad, like my customers. So burnt.
Just go home.
Oh my gosh, God.
Don't cry. Just go home.
Go home. Like, why are you crying?
So what? You're going home. Commercial.
I just got my cash back match. Just fill out the agreement. All the cash back new card members earn at the end of their first year automatically. Well, I got my fun there. How do you get yourself in the
Get a dollar for dollar match at the end of your first year, only from Discover.
Don't settle. Start your day with Secret. Secret stops all the cotton sweat 3 times more, and the pro vitamin B5 formula is gentle on skin. With Secret, outlast anything. No sweat. Secret.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, people like Geico because it's just easy. Home, for example, you've got car insurance here and home insurance here. Why not? Should put together.
So Gail, we're paying this consultant, Christina, to fix up our webpage and highlight some businesses in Ashford, each month. Yeah. How much we pay her, but anyway. So what I brought up on the thing is now that she's tweaked it and we have that going on, how many people actually like go to, Ashford Economic Development Commission? Yeah, I want to see what's their webpage is like, So I said, can we pull some statistics back? Like how many people actually look at it? I mean, it's great that she's done a good job with it, but so then it led to, well, you have to promote it, right? So you put on Ashford Community Connections on Facebook. Hey, check out Ashford Economic Developers' new webpage with a link, get some action going. And then we talked about the citizen that we're going to put a, half-page little blurb in there about, hey, check out our new webpage. We're trying to feature a Ashford business each month. So come check it out, see what, buy local. But if you don't, if you do something and nobody comes, it's like Field of Dreams, right? Build it and they will come. Well, not necessarily, right? So that was my point, is like, well, that's all well and good, but nobody goes to that webpage. My theory. So what's the point? Why are we wasting taxpayer money on this consultant? I mean, I didn't say that, but I'm trying to get these old farts to think critically.
Claim your first wild card free and play for your share of over 15 million in prizes. You can even win tickets to Super Bowl 56. Earn valuable cards for you either weekly player challenges or instant win prizes. One and more will win instantly. Download the DraftKings app. Claim your first wild card free before week 1 and be free with an official partner of the NFL.
Another day, another chance. Make the most of it. Network that can deliver case needs to the most businesses and get the advanced cybersecurity solutions you need. Comcast Business Security.
Ask how to get Comcast Business Security to all your connected devices and get started with a great offer on fast and reliable internet. Plus, ask how to get the installation and quickly part of $650 for select bundles when you buy online. How I go on my favorite Comcast Business. Powering possibilities.
You might like to see something soft and plush, maybe not so weak, but firm, like a wide arm, a narrow arm, how about a roll down, or even a flare down skirt, pillows, leather or fabric, just so you might like to get a whole room. Great lines, get over 72 months, no deposit, but equal payments are required. That's yours. You can have it your way.
Can you hit golf balls into a lake, or is that bad for the lake? Okay. I said, can you hit golf balls into a lake, or is that bad for the lake? An alligator? No alligators in that lake. Wash a keg.
Three stunning dishes. Grilled, steamed, fried. All of this is not to the Japanese traditional kaiseki. Right, let's kick off with Autumn. Really happy point.
Thank you. I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I didn't go very traditional kaiseki, but I know that my flavors are there, so I'm hoping that that's enough to get me on the balcony and do this one.
Nice. Awesome. Describe your dishes, please.
So I did my take on a grilled yakitori chicken meatball with an onsen egg sauce. For my steam, I did a spicy salmon onigiri with a spicy mayo. And for my fried, a creamy crab croquette with sesame sauce.
She did pretty good.
Looks like Japanese street food. It's plated up really nicely. It's simple, but it's colorful.
Having that experience.
Nice job, Autumn.
You know your Japanese flavors, so I can't wait to go there. So,
In terms of your grilled dish, I thought the chicken was good. I'm used to it being a little bit more tender. I think my favorite was definitely the honey. The fried dish. I think you did a good job. I like the taste of it a lot. Thank you. When we move on to the steamed dish, the rice is a little bit more firmer than I would have chosen.
as far as balance, it's very skewed. You have a creamy sauce, another creamy sauce. So there's really nothing to break it up. And also your execution is slightly too heavy, but sounds delicious.
How many did we say? This was 45 pounds?
Okay, it's a tough one to get right. That absolutely nailed it. The flavors are there. Bold. Really bold. I loved everything about this. I thought it was really, really good. Thank you.
What did you say, honey? Talking to me?
You bring down your dishes. Walking up to the judges, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. I'm not sure what to think about the content. Matthew, describe your dishes. So we start off with the prawns. I made a ponzu with hoisin sauce. The second one is a grilled tomato, marinated with mirin, soy sauce, garlic.
Oh,
and
it's
then
good.
the final one is a fried chicken, rice, nori, and a spicy mayo. I love the presentation. Okay, the color's not usually, but it's animals tonight to marinate it on. That's a great move because we want to stick to the traditions, but if it works, you know, it's there to be broken. Shall we?
How does he know what the traditions are?
For the steamed dish, the prawns are really great. They're definitely on the stronger side. And to follow that with a tomato, I think it worked for me. In terms of your fried chicken dish, I thought the chicken flavoring was really nice.
Very good. Very good in the concept of bringing these three things together. It felt like I was eating. Yeah. Yeah, and for me, your prawn dish, just be very careful. You said hoisin and ponzu sauce. There's no hoisin and ponzu sauce. You know, when you make statements like that, you make a promise. Save your flavors up. Just think about the beautiful. So your dish was wrong with us. And also share the dish with chicken breast. Just fine. Back inside that hot oil. Luckily, you caught the dish as a plate. He would have a dish. There's something skillful about the way you think. Thank you.
Nice job.
Dan, can you please bring your dish forward?
Oh no. Here comes train wreck.
I'm feeling nervous, but I'm also trying right now to just focus on the positives. I'm hoping that the judges recognize that my dishes show skill level and that I did a good enough job describing it. I don't want to be the one.
Dan, can you please describe your dishes?
Yes, so I am starting out with baby squid that I marinated, grilled, and then glazed. Next, I have the steamed parsnip that has maple breadcrumbs and miso. And I finished with a tom stuffed yolk.
This plateau of dishes expects the colors.
Yeah.
I just can't get over. They're like cartoonish. Tension was right, but you never serve anything like that.
cartoonish. Yeah. That looks good, Haley. We have Apple Plus.
Coaching, new workouts, and screening for colon cancer. Yep, the American Cancer Society recommends.
So USPS is gonna be like $3 more, and they say Thursday, September 2nd. And the other one is 5 days. So
Okay, what message do you hear this time? Say drivers can save using snapshot.
that's if they get it. Could be longer.
They're always like, wow. But I'm gonna sell it or change next weekend.
He's got kicked out.
That's UPS retail ground.
How about we get back to saving? Yeah, I would like to talk about that. Reggie Bush used to eat breakfast somehow, but then he tried Wendy's breakfast.
When you get paid, honey?
Not for a while, like the end of September.
And?
Yeah, it goes 3 weeks before we get paid.
Wow.
Dad, what should I download to watch on the plane?
Oh, don't get wrong, man.
Huh. Good question.
Maybe like a movie?
I suggest Leave It to Beaver reruns. That's what I suggest. Or Andy Griffith. How many hours are you guys in the air? It'll go by quick. Do they feed you lunch on the plane? You gotta bring your own lunch on the plane.
Yeah, download on Netflix, 6 hours, 6 minutes.
Not bad.
Yes.
On the way back.
Tailwind. Good news is I don't see any weather events
Can I give you?
that would impact your flight.
Can I give you, your passport? Give it to you.
Let's make one thing actually clear. It actually tastes better than looks. Cigars are beautiful. You can't like color. You know, the pasta could work had you sliced that into chunks. Then when you get that delicate sweetness of those squares, slice it open. Because the squid's tasty on the outside, it's just when you get on the inside. And it's sort of slightly
Right, a little treat.
I feel like your squid marinade was a little bit slack. For the steamed dish, I thought this is great. Because in Japan we do a dish like this, of course, with the smaller baby kabuto nuts. So I understand